Welcome to Born on the Bayou Sports, a Houston sports show made for Houstonians by Houstonians. Join Tim Costello and Scott Barzilla every week as they break down the latest in Houston Astros, Rockets, and Texans news. Tim's a former minor league broadcaster, and Scott has written 2 books on the Baseball Hall of Fame. Yeah, if Javier could get it figured out, it would make things a lot easier because he was that guy everybody was counting on this year to be a Cy Young candidate, take that big step forward and help anchor this rotation with Fromber.
Since he's come to Houston, you can look at the development of guys like Carlos Correa defensively, Jeremy Pena defensively. I mean, you can Alex Bregman's, certainly I think a better than average third baseman.
And now you're putting teams in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. Now here comes Will Anderson. Pin back your ears, let's go. So if you're Bayou born and bred, or just like spending time in the H, sit down, relax, and stay Houston strong. Well, welcome back, all my friends, to the song that happens once a week. We do this every week, and I can't figure out how I want to work it in there every week, Scott. But welcome back in. It seems to be Wednesdays. Wednesday's now the new day. We do our recording, so we come out late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning. But welcome to all of our friends as we took the week off last week. Sneaking one in here before Scott gets vacation, I believe, in the next couple weeks. So our June appearance it is.
Yeah, and both of us, I think, were on vacation right around the same time. We took a little mini trip, and because we were looking at our calendars, we had big plans, Tim. We were planning on doing a family trip, drive out to the Grand Canyon. We were going to make a week of it, and we looked at our summer schedule, and it's just not happening. We could not fit any time for all 3 of us to be off at the same time. So it's rough.
It certainly is, as everybody gets older, right? The schedules fill out a little bit more, and it's tough to make that happen. Were you thinking of doing that, the classic RV trip across, or are you going to, Griswold it, just a classic family American road trip? What was the thought process on the Grand Canyon?
I'm a teacher, Tim. I can't afford an RV.
Rent one.
We could rent one, but no, we were just going to take our Jeep.
I feel like realistically, if you were to rent an RV, it might even come out maybe a little cheaper than renting a hotel room.
Yeah, that's true. We were just going to take it slow, though, because we were going to go into Phoenix, first and probably try to catch a D-backs game in there. But that didn't turn out. We ended up having to settle for the San Antonio Missions. So,
great stadium. I love San Antonio. Is a wonderful town to visit. I kind of got tired of living there, but it's always great to go back to San Antonio. It's always fun for a weekend. Reno claims to be, the biggest little city in America, but I think San Antonio might have a chance to challenge them on that.
Yeah, it was a fun game. Only at a minor league stadium can you get a dancing jalapeno and taco as mascots. I don't think that's going to happen anywhere in the big leagues. And you got to see a promotion where a kid got to circle the bases, chase down the taco, and tackle the taco. You're not going to see that in the big league ballpark.
No, you're not. It's a cultural thing. That's what's nice about minor league baseball is you can appreciate the little, quirks or oddities or local heritage of a town or a city. Whereas, Major League Sports is a lot more playing to your corporate partners and your corporate sponsors. And, these are the in-between inning things that have to happen every single game because Exxon paid for this or somebody paid for the Steal the Base challenge or, we always play the, deep in the heart of Texas in the 7th inning stretch. There's just not a lot of room for creativity sometimes. So we did some crazy stuff in minor league baseball for our in-between inning games. I always loved the beat the flat, whatever the beat that got the race one where they give the guy a super head start and then the track star just comes and fucking smokes everybody. Like, love that one.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen that one, every now and then. And it was, Yeah, well, hey, look, we're here. Jake Myers with a hit. But yeah, it's it was a nice experience. We saw Bugs Bunny. I'm not sure what Bugs Bunny has to do with the missions. That one's a
Six
bit of a puzzle.
Flags. Six Flags is in San Antonio.
Okay, that's a bit of a puzzler. What I will say about San Antonio is I would not want to live there. They ended up shutting down I-10 between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. And that caught us twice. That caught us going in because we actually stayed in Kerrville. And then that it not only got us in Kerrville, but it got us from leaving the missions game. And so, we had to exit the highway, take this detour. And so, San Antonio is a nice town. TxDOT is going to be up there in scumbag territory. They're not going to get the scumbag award this week. That goes to a very special person, but they're going to be up there.
Yeah, first of all, some of the roads or interchanges in San Antonio are some of the worst I've ever seen in my life. It sounds like you didn't really go up that way, but where like Six Flags and the Rim and all that stuff is 1604 and I-10 come together for what might be the worst or just dumbest interchange I've ever seen in my entire life, with the traffic that is currently on the road, on the highway rather, freeway, whatever term you want to use, expressway, has to fucking yield to the people getting on the entry ramp. You yield to them. It is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. So, it's again, like, it's like, if you think back, it was a mission, right? Like, it was a mission. It was an army outpost at different points. It's a military town, and it's just kind of as Austin has exploded, as that Central Texas area has exploded, Bernie, all those areas. But it's a great place to visit. Like, it's one of Texas. I think it's one of Texas's best tourist towns, right? Like,
Oh
I don't
yeah.
know if you got a chance to go over to where the Alamo is, but they're completely redoing that area and kind of setting it back historically to what it would have looked like at the time of the fort at the mission, right? So you've got gravel road, you've got fencing on where, like, hey, this is where the furthest most point of the Alamo was, and here's where the cannon was, and like, yeah, they're kicking some places out of there, like the Ripley's Believe It or Not museum, but they're gonna basically rebuild the whole fort of the Alamo, which is pretty fucking cool in my opinion. And again, don't forget, rocker Genesis drummer Phil fucking Collins is the number one donator of Alamo artifacts in the world. The dude came and did a concert in San Antonio, took a tour of the Alamo, was like, this is awesome, and just started collecting Alamo shit.
Yeah, it was. Well, unfortunately, we didn't get to go because it was a 2-day trip, really, more or less, Saturday and Sunday. And so Saturday we went to Fredericksburg, which was our plan, from the get go, and that's kind of a must. We got to go to Russell and Rob's. I don't know if you've been to that store.
I haven't.
It's terrific. It's got all the hot sauces that you could get your hands on. So Janet got to try herself against a 2.5 million Schofield hot sauce. And she lived to tell the tale. I would not attempt that. And then Sunday we took a trip to the caverns, which is, I think, right outside of Bernie. And it's a theme park. I mean, we dropped two bills, to get in there and do all the ropes course, which is the closest thing to a field sobriety test I've ever seen. But it was a good day all the way around.
I'm not a guy who can handle heat. I've got some digestive issues, amongst other things. Call it little bitch syndrome. I don't care what you want to call it. Like, there's not one sauce in that building, Scott, that would have been appropriate for me unless it was like sweet honey barbecue. Like,
Oh no,
that's it.
they got that stuff too. They've got
Yeah.
like all kinds of flavored peanut butters, jams, preserves. So I mean, you got the full 9 yards. It's not just hot sauce.
Going the whole gambit.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of whole gambit, it seems like lately, Scott, the Houston Astros have the whole gambit on the IL. Right now, Justin Verlander is on the IL. Since the last time we've done our show, Cristian Javier is on the IL. Jose Urquidy back under the knife again for Tommy John. He and Javier as well have Tommy John. Kyle Tucker's been out. Now Yordan is out. I got the lineup today when it came in, and looks like a spring training lineup right now. This is Interesting territory for your Houston Astros when you look at the sustained success they've had the last few years, especially going back to 2017. There was a period where everybody that we called up for the most part, seemed to come up and be successful when called upon. You have your Taylor Joneses of the world, or some position players that maybe didn't pan out the way you wanted to, but Astros had great luck with health for this entire playoff run, for this entire ALCS run. They've had great luck with, uh, you know, foreign scouting that's made its way to the major leagues, especially on the pitching side of things. But that luck is turning here this season, especially, Scott.
Yeah, I think every season has, even the bad seasons, you have a guy that shows up and you're like, shit, I didn't know he could do that. And it seems like, throughout that, 2015 to 2023 run, you had multiple guys. You're like, wow, I didn't see this coming. And there's been a few guys that, stepped up and done some things this year, but, particularly I think at the end of the bullpen. But, I had the joke. I think I've got a new sponsorship that I think Joe Espada is perfect for. Fade in, picture this. You're hearing the audio. All right. Okay. Who do we got going tomorrow? We got that pitch from AAA, right? Who do we got going the next day? I think it's that guy from the Independent League. I need Indeed. And then the voiceover comes in. Indeed, you do. I mean, that's about where we are right now.
Yeah, it's slim pickings. You're right. There are positives every season, right? Like, it does seem to me right now, at least, that Hunter Brown maybe has found a little something here in his last few starts, using the fastball and sinker a little bit differently than he had been previously. So that's a positive, right? Like, Kyle Tucker continues to be Kyle Tucker. Pena seems to have solved the power outage that plagued him last year, and Jake Myers looks serviceable. But at the same time, coming into the season, you thought you had, I guess, found money in Chas McCormick, a late round pick who had played well for 2 years, but he's been garbage this year, basically unplayable at times, based on the text you and I have. Trey Cabbage is getting starts over a guy who had an 820 or 830 OPS last year. He's fallen off the face of the earth. Bregman is, I guess, pretty average Bregman when you think about it. He's a slow starter, heats up about this time. We'll see where the OPS finishes for the season. He might be a click below, what he's done the past few years, but I guarantee you he's going to put a heater on going down the stretch, and it might be too little too late, but that's what he does. I don't know. Like, there's been some disappointments, but a lot of it's been from the health side of things and from the back end of the bullpen. Like, I feel like if you had closed 2/3 of the games that you've blown, you're right at the lead of the division right now.
All right, Tim. We're obviously burying the lead here, as far as the Astros are concerned. So, give me your most quintessential memory of Jose Abreu as a Houston Astro.
That is true. I don't know. Maybe the home run in Minnesota. He had a pretty big home run in the Twins series last year.
For me, it wasn't a big home run in terms of wins and losses, but it was a kind of a humorous moment. Was his very first home run as a Houston Astro in Oakland last year, where he does the full-on sprint and slide into home plate. I mean, that's a guy that, I think at least understood the gravity of the moment.
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't lead off with that. Jose Abreu, no longer an Astro. Interesting the way it played out, right? Like, Brown, I feel like Brown softened the landing, softened the ground for it a couple days before, where he said, like, the evaluation period is coming to an end. We have to make a decision soon. And then it was like the next fucking day, the guy was DFA'd, right? So, interesting that, like, he's soft He soft floated that out there and then made the hard decision the next day. I wonder if Dana is coming into his own a little bit. I wonder if he's maybe starting to make headway with Jim Crane, and he can look at him and say, like, look, bitch, like this shit didn't pan out. My guy almost threw his second no-hitter that I said, hey, Blanco should be a starter, and all of a sudden he's the best starter on the team. And look at Bagwell's decision. Look at your decision to sign Montero. Please back away and let the guy that you hire do his job. Maybe that's what it is, and that might be a good thing, at least going forward.
I think that's the biggest question mark going forward is what role is Dana Brown and Joe Espada going to have moving in this organization going forward? Because I heard some calls today listening to sports radio around town. There's some people are predicting that he could be fired, that Joe Espada could be fired at the end of the season. And I'm not saying that he should be, but they're saying they think he might be just because, it might be a convenient scapegoat for, why this thing has gone awry. And it kind of makes I think it's pretty clear to me that neither Joe Espada or Dana Brown wanted Jose Abreu at first base. Certainly after he was sent down. I don't think those decisions were about them. I think those were forced upon them, maybe from Crane, maybe from Bagwell, maybe a combination. It's hard to say. But I mean, and I'm not going to say, a lot of people are going to sing, joke and sing "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead," that Jose Abreu is out of town. The guy tried as hard as he could. But we were all told at a certain point that we can't play a kid's game. And that time, unfortunately for him, was now. And you notice that, that decision happened was now almost a full week ago. I don't see anybody rushing to sign Jose Abreu.
No, right? Like Father Time is undefeated. I still will go to my grave believing Jose Abreu is older than we were led to believe. And I don't blame Jose Abreu, right? That's the system. You got to do what you got to do to get out of Cuba and make your way, right? Like, it is what it is. I blame the Astros for not doing better due diligence. So it is what it is, right? But, like, I'm with you. I don't blame Jose Abreu any part of this process. Like, he was in the negotiating process. He was there. Like, the Astros offered him this contract. He said yes. Like, this is not on him. I don't think at any point he is a guy who took the money and didn't try, right? Like, I don't think his work ethic changed. I think Father Time was undefeated. The guy could not catch up to a major league fastball. Even if you look at the 2 home runs that he hit once he got called back up, they were breaking pitches, and he went the other way with them. Like, he didn't like capitalize on a cement mixer and crush it. He fucking goes the other way with us like a hanging slider. And again, a home run's a home run. Okay. But like, if I'm looking for signs of bat speed, to me, that's one of like, he doesn't have it anymore. And that's not something that you're going to work your way out of, right? You're not going to go down and get out of this funk and tee off against young kids, because that's sort of been our first, for you and I, at least I think it was, but that's the first clue is like, these guys that he's going up against in the rookie league, they still throw hard. They don't have secondary pitches. Some of them have 2 pitches, but they don't have, the plethora of pitches to be able to be starters or to advance past a certain level. But the way that baseball is played nowadays, every fucking kid that's coming up that gets drafted those 94 above, right? Like, that's pretty much, it is what it is. So the fact that he's not hitting 650 in rookie ball should show you everything that you needed to know, because you're a major league fucking hitter. You should be able to sit on these kids' fastballs and just tee off. But he can't sit on the fastball. He can't do it because he can't hit an average major league fastball, let alone, Aroldis Chapman in the 9th inning coming in to close it out, or whoever we see to face Aroldis every year. But whoever the hard throw is, he doesn't have it. And you're right. No one's rushed to sign him. No one's thrown a minor league. Let's see if he's got it. Like, even Yuli's still banging around in AAA for the Braves, like, and a minor league deal. No one's offering him that because all that's going to happen is you're going to take time away from a guy who probably could make your team at some point, and he's going to hit fucking 180 in AAA instead of 125 in the major leagues, because these guys can still just blow AAA heat by him.
Yeah. And you know, and for the, and I want to say this now, we're probably going to get into this in more detail, but I know you're the one who brought this to my attention yesterday, but I saw it immediately on the broadcast afterwards. We had the passing of the greatest living baseball player up until yesterday. Willie Mays passed away. So I say this knowing that. Number one, the Astros are trailing the Mariners by 10 games. There is not a 10-win player in Major League Baseball right now. None. Nowhere. Willie Mays was. Willie Mays during his peak was a 10-win player. Albert Pujols touched that. Mike Trout during, when he was completely healthy, touched that. That player isn't there. So for anybody who sits there and says, hey, let's go get Paul Goldschmidt. Hey, let's go get Peter Alonso. Hey, let's go get Josh Bell. Take a look at their numbers and tell me how that guy is going to get us over the hump. Even if you could, find a pitcher, the greatest pitcher in baseball now, who do you think is the number one pitcher in baseball?
I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know who the greatest pitcher in baseball is right now.
Well, put him on the Astros. Are we going to the playoffs with that guy?
Not on that alone, right? You need a lot of other things to happen.
Right, exactly. And so this is, and when I saw yesterday's news coupled with yesterday's meek 2-0 loss to the worst team in Major League Baseball, who there are probably some AAA teams that could beat the White Sox. It's over. It's trying to, and I'm not saying a Marlins style sell-off. I'm not, it's not like I'm, one of those shitbag owners that wants to, pare the payroll down to $30 million. But you've got some guys that you are not bringing back next year. You're not. So Alex Bregman, I don't think he's coming back. So let's see what you can get for him. There's a team that probably needs a third baseman down the stretch, that could hit better than their third baseman. You've got Framber Valdez. I don't know if you saw this. Bradish with the Orioles just has gone down with Tommy John. I think the Orioles would love to talk to you about Framber Valdez. And they are swimming in prospects. So to me, it's time to start listening. And I know Dana Brown said, we're not selling. My hope is that he's trying to be a poker player. My hope is that he's trying to do this fake, I'm going to try and instill confidence on my team. I hope he doesn't mean that. Because to me, the idea of buying for this season is a ridiculous notion.
I agree in certain ways, right? Like, I wouldn't buy a 6-month rental or a half season rental player who's only going to be here for the rest of the season. A Pete Alonso, right? Whose contract is up at the end of the year. But if you got a guy like who could be here for 2 years after this year, somebody who, considering a good chunk of your plans for the future of your rotation just got Tommy John. If you got a guy who's going to have this year and next year as available, I might be willing to look at a deal like that simply to benefit the future of my team, because I know in the future, hey, JV just went to the IL, so he might not reach that innings limit that's going to bring him back automatically next year. Cristian Javier's out until at least July, most likely. Urquidy might ever, who knows what the hell you're ever going to get from Jose Urquidy again. As you said, Framber might not be back next year. I don't know, depending on what the options are.
Well, Framber has him one more year before he's a free agent.
Right.
So, he would be back unless you trade him. I think the problem I have is that when you look at our farm system, I don't see the guy out there who you can reasonably trade any of your prospects for that's going to give you that 2 or 3 year window. That's just not going to happen. So I'm not really sure Um, I'm not really sure where that's going to come down. So basically, here's what I'm going to lay out for you, Tim, and what I'm going to lay out, and for those of y'all who are listening, tomorrow, it's time to start thinking. It's time to start looking at what's this roster going to look like in 2025. Now, you mentioned Verlander. Now, Verlander is kind of a complicated sort of guy because the big problem with Verlander is that, yes, the Mets are paying half his salary, which means that you essentially would get him next year for $17.5 million. But in terms of the tax, you're paying the full freight on that. So that's $35 million in the tax. So you start lumping off Justin Verlander, $35 million. When you lump off Ryan Presley, who you could probably deal right now, and I think there are teams that would give you a decent prospect for him just based on the fact that he's likely to bounce back from some bad batted ball luck. That's about $15 million. Boom. Alex Bregman right now is making $30 million. Now his tax rate is closer to 20. So now you're up to $70 million. If you trade Fromber's, probably getting close to that, $15 million mark. Now you're lumping off $85 million off of that payroll and off of that tax line. And so now all of a sudden you're going to start looking at, say Kyle Tucker, and you're going to sit there and say, okay, you want 8 years, $300 million? Okay, we can afford that now. If you want to sit there and you want to extend Jeremy Pena, maybe. But to me, the thing that you have to do this year, I think, is you got to start looking at who do you have and who is likely to be a part of this team next year. And I think that what frustrates me about the decision making, and we'll get more into decision making, I guess, as this show goes on, but what makes me angry is that you've had Joey Loperfido languishing either in AAA or on the bench. Why? You're going to sit there and play Trey Cabbage. Trey Cabbage is 28, 29 years old. What's he going to do? I mean, his day's gone. Here you got a guy sitting there at 23, 24 years old, has hit in every level in the minors. And you've got people who have already writing them off as being a utility guy for the rest of his career. Why? Based on what? You haven't seen anything yet. The only thing he's done is hit about 330 at the big league level when you have given him an opportunity. Then you decided, well, we've played him some games at first base, but he's not ready. Based on what? And so now that you're looking at a 10-game deficit, now that you're looking at a team that, is trailing 7.5 games in the wild card standings, now that you're a team that has the 6th worst record in baseball right now is the time to sit there and say, okay, screw it. We're going to put Joey Loperfido at first base. Let's see what happens. Okay, he commits 3 errors. Well, screw it. Now you found out he can't handle first base, but what's the worst thing that can happen? Oh shit, he can handle first base? Then you got egg on your face. Well, it looks like he could have done it, and we were languishing around with Abreu and Singleton for, more than 2 months trying to figure it out. Jonathan Singleton's a nice story. I like him as a guy. I like the fact that he came back and was able to get back into the big leagues. He's back to overcome what, seems like an addiction to marijuana. But he is, when you look up a definition of a replacement level player, there's a picture of John Singleton right there in the dictionary. Now, that's okay for a guy that's making league minimum. That's okay for a guy that you're just a stopgap. And it's like, we don't have any other options. That's okay. Like if you sit there and you're like, well, our only other option is a guy that was the worst regular in Major League Baseball. But you have other options on this roster. You've got Yainer Diaz, who's played a little bit of first base in his career, at least in the minors. You've got, a guy like Victor Caratini who's played a little bit of first base. You've got Loperfido and Cabbage, who've all played first base in the minor leagues. You're playing Dubon there now. Why? You got all these other guys that could possibly do it. I don't get it. And so, And you mentioned Chas McCormick. Chas McCormick, it looks like he's starting to show signs of life, but he can't get consistent playing time. If you don't think Chad McCormick is a part of your future, I respect that. But let's deal him and get something like a serviceable AAA arm that could come up here and start every fifth day until we start getting healthy guys back. Because right now you're nabbing relievers down in AAA because you don't want to call up Eric Lauer for, I don't know, whatever reason. And so you're on your fifth day, while Verlander's out, you're just like, guess we'll bullpen day it. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. It's time to sit there and it's not giving up necessarily. I mean, you're still trying to win games, but really at the end of the day, you're treating the season like an extended spring training. You're treating the season like, I want to find out which one of these guys can do it. Right now, in the bullpen, Ryan Presley would not be pitching after the seventh inning. Period. Just wouldn't. At least not now, until he proves that, his batted ball luck has turned around. He's got the highest ERA in the bullpen, other than Dubin. He's got the highest whip in the bullpen. Yes, batted ball luck, absolutely, but it also means he's not missing bats. He's got the highest hard hit rate of any guy in the bullpen. He belongs nowhere near the eighth inning. But, let's see what happens. What happens if Taylor Scott gets thrown into the seventh inning? You move Abreu to the eighth. What happens? What's the worst that can happen? The same thing that's been happening when Ryan Presley's in there. So at this point, I just don't know. I think, Tim and I, I think we're going to talk a little bit more, talking a little bit off air about, some questionable decisions, and I think this is probably now is that time to start having that conversation, to start looking at, what are decisions that this team is making? Why are we making these decisions? Who is making these decisions? And who do we want to move forward making the decisions? I think you and I both agree it should be Dana Brown, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. So, somebody's got to help me out with this. Somebody's got to help me out with, some of the decisions that this team is making, and that we're not only bleeding games, but we're not finding out what some of these guys can do. Now, funny, as I report this, the Astros are beating the White Sox 3-1. Hunter Brown goes another good 6 innings, pitches, 6 innings, 1-run baseball. Certainly not everything was good, but, it's the kind of start that you have to have in order to win games. Brian Abreu goes through an easy 7th, and you watch. Ryan Presley's coming out for the 8th inning. Is he going to come through? I don't know yet. But to me, this is not the direction this team should be going. This team should be looking to deal Ryan Presley. This team should be looking to deal Alex Bregman. This team should be looking to deal either Chas McCormick or Jake Myers, guys who, they may or may not want as part of their future. And they need to start listening on Framber Valdez. Because, if you trade all of those guys, you start adding 6 or 7 prospects that would probably all be a part of your top 10 prospects. Maybe not top 10 prospects from the organization they're coming from, but considering the holes that you have in your organization, you're talking about, 6 or 7 prospects. You're also talking about, guys that when Alex Bregman leaves in free agency, who do you have playing third? Do you have Will Wagner? Maybe. But, maybe you're able to acquire a decent prospect that could fill in at third base. Then you've got, who do you got playing first base? Hopefully it's not, Jonathan Singleton again. But if you try guys like Joey Loperfido, Trey Cabbage, maybe, just maybe, you might find your guy. All right, Tim. I'm almost out of breath here, keeping that going. But I think you and I were to start talking about some of the questionable decisions that the organization has been making. And, maybe we start talking about where do we want things to go in the future?
Yeah, I definitely think one of the reasons you brought Dana Brown in, right, is his ability to work contracts that I think favor both the player and the team at the same time, right? Like guys like the Braves were signed young, and most of them seem to work out. So where I see the future is I hope the Astros take advantage of the talent they currently have on the roster that is not going to be easily replaced. Guys like Kyle Tucker, guys like Pena and Diaz, get those extensions done now. So I mean, the longer you wait on Tucker, the more expensive it is. The longer you wait on Pena, the more expensive it is. The longer theoretically you wait on Diaz, the more expensive it is. If you can get this guy for $7-8 million a year, lock him up for 6 years. Okay, let's go. And I would like to see that be the direction they go in and try and retool as quickly as possible. Right? If you truly believe Bregman is gone, what's your answer for third base next year? Right? Because you look around the league and there's not a plethora of third basemen out there available. Like realistically, even after a down, what could be a down year, Bregman's still one of the top third base candidates out there. So that's a hole you have to fill. You need to fill something in left field. You cannot keep running Yordan Alvarez out there to be your everyday left fielder. He's a DH, and you play him in the outfield, he gets hurt. He's been playing the outfield a little bit more lately, and what's wrong? Oh, all of a sudden he's not available today. He's not available last night. So I don't know. You need another outfielder. If it's Cabbage, okay, let's give this guy some run. If it's any of the guys that you have, you've got some guys that have been moved up the ladder pretty quickly here lately. Matthews is a shortstop. I'm wondering if maybe that's a guy who can play third base at the major league level. He's absolutely been raking. But I don't know, Scott. Like, in my opinion, you've got to lock up some of these young players now so that way you can fill in the areas that are aging out.
I think, one of the things I was saying when you took your little break was I think number one, as we see Chas McCormick hits a sacrifice fly, he's been hitting a little bit better of late. He just hit his first home run, in the Detroit series. It looks like he's hitting with a little more authority lately and getting some hits, but he's just not getting consistent playing time. But what I was saying was, if you look at, obviously, both Chas McCormick and Jake Myers are not part of your plans. Both aren't. I think it's one or the other. So to me, I would, who do you want to move forward? Who do you don't? You trade the one you don't. I think Ryan Presley could fetch things now. And I think, there's teams that are going to, and who have got some smart GMs are going to look at his batted ball rates and look at his StatCast numbers and go like, this guy's a positive regression candidate, and I want to take advantage of that now. They'll flip you a good prospect. And see, the thing is with the way that the Astros system is, if they give you a top 20 prospect from their system, that guy immediately becomes a top 10 prospect in your own system. If you flip Bregman, you probably get two of those guys. If you flip Fromber, you could get, two or three guys, depending on, when you do it and how desperate teams are. If you start looking at all those, four guys I just mentioned, and you can count up maybe six good prospects. Look what you've done to your farm system. One of those guys could be a third baseman, could be a third base prospect. The other guy that, is currently raking, I don't know what Will Wagner's, situation is going to be long-term.
He projects more as a second baseman.
Yeah, it's and I think, Dubon could fit in there maybe for a year, if you think you have a guy that's a year away. But, to me, what I was talking about is John Singleton. If you look up replacement level player in the dictionary, there's a picture of John Singleton right there. Boom. That's a replacement level player. You don't want a replacement level player playing first base for you long term. As a stopgap, sure. But you have guys, Cabbage, Loperfido. You've got this guy, Hummel, has played some first base. Throw any of them in there. Diaz has played some first base in the minor league level. Caratini has played first base. You got five guys that could theoretically play first base for you, other than John Singleton. If this season is a lost season, we need to find out if any of those guys can play.
Yeah, I like John Singleton, the story, right? Like, it's a nice story. Guy found Jesus, quit smoking pot, got his life together, made his way back to the major leagues. That's all great. That's all. It's going to make a wonderful Disney Channel movie at some point. But at the end of and then the highlight will be that 3 home run game, right? Like, that'll be like the highlight of the movie. But like, at the end of the day,
We're going to
whether
gloss over the pot smoking part if it's a Disney movie.
maybe Lifetime, no, they're too Christian-y. I don't know. It might be like a Netflix movie. I don't know, but right, there's a movie in there. Right, there's a fun, sappy movie in there. But here's the deal: if you think the Astros have a chance to make a run, if you're one of those people, and I'm not saying I'm in either one of these camps, I'm playing devil's advocate here. If you think the Astros have it within them to make a run, you can't do that with, as you said, a replacement level first baseman. You've got to have somebody better. And that means that either Dubon plays first base every day, Diaz plays more first base, Cabbage gets hot, Laperfito gets hot. One of those options has to happen, I feel like, for this team to be a playoff team. That's point one, if you're one of those people. If you're someone more like Scott, who thinks it's time to let some of the guys play, it's time to let the guys play, right? Like, he's absolutely right. This is not a long-term answer on this team. John Singleton is a perfect player for independent baseball. And I'm sorry. Like, it is what it is. Like, he's a 220, 230 hitter in the major leagues. His home run rate isn't good enough to carry that batting average, right? Like, you're not Chris Carter. We would kill for Chris Carter right now offensively, because Chris Carter would still hit 30, 35 bombs if he had the amount of playing time that John Singleton is getting. I would be okay with the 230 average, because you know what? Singleton does walk, but the pop just isn't there for this guy. For what he is, right? He's supposed to be the 3 true outcome player, home run, walker, strikeout. The home run rate is terrible. So at the end of the day, it's been a fun experiment. It's got a great story. But if you want to win this year, you got to find a better option. Or if you want to make this just a one-off season that's not that great and you want to find a way to be competitive again next year, you've got to find a better option. So basically what I'm saying, Scott, is no matter what you want to do, long-term or short-term, the answer is find a better option at first base.
Yeah, and to me, the option can't be Paul Goldschmidt or Peter Alonso. Because as you pointed out earlier, those are guys that are both going to be free agents at the end of the season. So all you've done is delay your decision 3 or 4 months. And what are, I think Paul Goldschmidt's a Hall of Famer. You don't, which, I respect that. He's not playing like a Hall of Famer this year because he's towards the end of his career. The guy I looked at Josh Bell's numbers, and I saw a rumor Josh Bell, he's under replacement level right now for Miami. Peter Alonso is going to be about a 2 or 3 win player. If you were trailing the Mariners by 2 games, I'd be like, let's fucking go and get this guy. We're not trailing the Mariners by 2 games. We're trailing by 10. And so, yeah, when you look at a lineup, would you be geeked to see, say Altuve, Bregman, Alvarez, Tucker, Alonso as your top 5 hitters? Yeah, that'd look pretty damn good in the lineup. But none of those guys can pitch.
But also, let's remember too, if that's what you want in the lineup, just wait and go sign them in the offseason.
Yeah.
Why give up some of our few prized prospects that we have to go get them now? When at the end of the day, you're still going to have to extend him. You're still going to have to offer him that contract. Is there a slight chance that he loves being in Houston and he gives you a $3 or $4 million a year break on that contract? Maybe. But in today's baseball, I don't think so, right? The contract's going to be what the contract's going to be. So if you really think, man, I want Pete Alonso as the future first baseman of this team, okay, like I'm not going to tell you no to that, but I am going to say he's a free agent. I don't need to, and that's what I tell the Mets too, right? Like, hey, I know you want to get rid of this guy. I know you want something for him. I completely get that. we're going to give you a low-level prospect and you're going to take Lance McCullers' money. It's going to be something like that, right? Like it's going to be you're going to have to take some money with you because or you're going to take a low-level prospect for him because we're not going to give you a good prospect for a guy that we can go sign. At least that's got to be Dana Brown's negotiating point because
All right.
otherwise that's just dumb.
All right. Before we get to the the favorite part of the week, or what some people would call the favorite part of the week.
Well, hang on, we got other stuff.
Oh, we got it. No, I know. I was about to get to some of the other stuff.
Okay.
So you saw what happened to Rory McIlroy on the golf course there Sunday at the Open.
I did.
So number one, how do you feel about him just walking away, not facing the media, not shaking DeChambeau's hand afterwards and all that? And where do you put that? His particularly 16 and 18. Where do you put that in the continuum between just shit happens and the C word?
I think first of all, we could say the word choke, Scott, right? Like it's not crazy to think about. The putt on 18 is much harder than people are giving it credit for. That putt broke a good 1.5 feet on a 4-foot putt. But the one on 16 was the one that cost him. That was a straight pull. That was an absolute straight pull. And that's a lazy, not being focused shot, right? Like that's just a 2-foot, 3-foot putt. You got to focus in and give it a good stroke. I think coming down the stretch, I was maybe rooting for Bryson a tad more, but I would have been happy if Rory won. This was the most watched U.S. Open final that was, an East Coast U.S. Open in, 10 years. It was a great tournament. And I don't care that Roy didn't stay. Like golf dictates that you take off your hat and you shake the hand of the people that were in the group with you, right? Like where in the rule, where in the, golf etiquette or unwritten rules or whatever you want to call it, where does it say that you need to hang around and shake somebody else's hand outside of the people that you played with? Because I've played competitive golf. I've never felt like I had to do that, right? Like if I knew I didn't win in an HGA tournament, I wasn't going to stick around and shake the winner's hand. I packed my shit up and I went home.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, this isn't the NBA Finals, right? Where the clock runs out and everybody was on the court together and you shake hands and you say congratulations and you go home, right? Like at that point, Roy has to go out of his way to go find Bryson to give him that handshake. It's going to be a public thing, right? Because the cameras are everywhere. Do a lot of people do it? Yeah, absolutely. But also a lot of times too, those guys are in the same group together, right? Like there's many of these majors where you're in the same group. So the custom is to take off your hat if you're wearing one and shake hands with the people that you're playing with and their caddy. Like that's the custom. So if you're in the same group, that handshake is going to happen. If you're the defending champion, you're going to be on there to hand the trophy over and give him a handshake. If you're a friend of his, you're going to stick around to watch. If you're a guy who missed 2 3-footers in the last 3 holes to literally lose the U.S. Open, why the fuck would you want to stick around and answer questions? The questions are going to be, hey, Rory, what happened on 16? Hey, Rory, what happened on 18? Hey, Rory, I noticed you're not getting divorced anymore. Do you think that allowed you to play better this week? Hey, Rory, do you feel like maybe your wife complaining about how often you play golf means you don't get to practice putting as much as you should have? Like, why stay and answer those questions?
Yeah, I can see that. I don't know if you've been in a position to win a golf tournament. I've told you this story.
Unfortunately,
I was in a position to win one my senior year in high school, and went 6 over in the last 4 holes.
Similar. I was playing Deerwood, which for those of our listeners who are not aware, that is the course where a good chunk of Tin Cup was shot.
Yeah.
Including the Tin Cup famous 18th hole. Cold, miserable, windy day. I'm like 4 or 5 over for the day through like 13 or 14 holes, like fighting, playing decent golf. Coach Jessic, who's at the time the Clear Lake golf coach, comes up to me and looks at my card and is like, "Hey man, you might actually be winning this thing today. It's scores are kind of high. It's a sloppy day." I go double double triple double to shoot 86, and ended up finishing like third in that tournament. And then another one, at HGA tournament, had to go to a playoff, and we couldn't go to the par five. That was supposed to be the playoff, which I for sure would have beat this guy. We have to go to a 200 because my brother was taking too long in his round, and they were fucking around on that hole on 18, and they hadn't finished it yet. So like, oh, we'll just go to 17, which is like a 200-yard par three. I make bogey, he makes par. I got a second place finish.
Yeah. So, and I don't know that I was definitely, answering questions from my teammates, like what the hell happened. But yeah, I kind of get that. And to me, this not what he did doesn't rise to the level of, well, you don't remember TC Chen because you weren't alive. I was alive and watched it live. It wasn't a Van de Velde, in my mind. But, I think it kind of rose to kind of the level of a lot of the stuff Greg Norman was doing back in the 90s, where it seems like he was just getting, snake bit and losing like to a Larry Mize chip in at the Masters and just all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is like Roy's choked before, right? Like, let's not forget, like the dude had the lead at the Masters and then like blasted one of the Eisenhower cabin on the back nine on 18, and when he was a really young lad. But in the last few years, like he's definitely given himself a lot of chances. He's got like some backdoor top three finishes. Like he had a Masters finish 2 or 3 years ago where him and Colin Morikawa both hold out from the bunker on 18, and Roy ends up finishing second to Scheffler when Scheffler wins by 4. But then he also has, the Open Championship at St. Andrews, where he literally goes out and he hits every single green in regulation, hits all the par fives and two putts his way to a 68 or whatever it is, right? And loses that golf tournament. Like literally played damn near perfect golf and actually came in third at the end of the day and didn't miss a single green. Like, you want to talk about snake bitten? Like, how and in what world do you lose that tournament, Scott? Like, if I come to you and say you don't miss a single green and you two putt every single hole and you two putt the par fives and make birdies, but you're gonna lose, like, you'd be like, what? I didn't have any mistakes and I lost. Like, that's the stuff that Roy doesn't have lately, at least. I'm gonna kick it old school. I'm gonna take you back to the streets with this line. He's lost that eye of the tiger. He's lost that edge, right? He needs Apollo fucking Creed. What he needs is like Tiger. We need Tiger to play the role of Apollo, to come up to him and be like, we got to take it back to your roots. And then next thing you know, Roy and Tiger are running on a beach together.
Unfortunately, you don't have Chubbs. You couldn't have Chubbs anymore.
Rest in peace, Chubbs. But no, like literally, like I think that's what it is. Like Roy is a little soft, right? Like, and it happens to every golfer. It happened to Tiger. Tiger is not the same fucking killer that he once was. Like, there was a time when just being in the final group with Tiger meant you had no chance.
Oh,
right?
Well, he can't physically do it anymore, though.
But but the chink in the armor started once Elin jacked his face up with a 9-iron, right? Like, he wasn't the same. Y.E. Yang literally chased Tiger down in a PGA championship. In what world did anyone ever think a guy named Y.E. Yang would take out Tiger Woods, right? Like, what other successes does Y.E. Yang have outside of like that 1 year period? He was a guy who flashed in the pan, but at the end of the day, he showed that Tiger can be beaten. That was like Tiger literally had the lead. Aaron Badley started the day with the lead at that PGA Championship, makes triple on the first hole. So with 17 holes left to play, Tiger has the lead, and he couldn't close it out. Like, that was the start of the end of that chink in the armor. He's got one major championship in the last, God knows, whatever, since the night after Thanksgiving when, the infamous, hey, it's Tiger. don't call me.
Yeah.
Fucking shit broke out, right? Like the chink in the
Well,
armor happens to everybody. You know, Jack became beatable at some point. Uh, Greg Norman became beatable. Faldo became beatable. These guys, whether it's when they have families and they just don't have golf as their main 100% priority anymore, which I have no issue with, by the way. But I don't know. Like, are you more scared of Rory or Scotty Scheffler right now?
oh
Why?
yeah. I was going to say though, if he could come out at the British Open with
I'm
an
sorry. It's the
Odyssey,
Open Championship, Scott.
the,
Let's
O-
get it right here. Be
the
respectful.
Open, the Open Championship with
Thank
an
you.
Odyssey hockey stick, that would just be epic.
And what's crazy is like compare Roy to Spieth, right? Like Spieth doesn't compete in a lot of tournaments. Like he's there, but he's not around the leaderboard. He's not in contention. Rory's in contention at most of these tournaments. Rory is top 20 in most majors. He's near the top of the leaderboard. And numbers would tell you if you put yourself in position that many times over and over and over again, eventually it's going to roll your way, right? Like, but he has almost seemingly found a way to either have a bad Friday and have 3 good rounds and a bad Friday, or miss 2 3 foot putts coming down the stretch to take yourself out of it, or you know, not be able to get up and down from spots that people should be able to get. He just seems to, even though he's there and has a chance, he's not capitalizing. And again, that's where I get back to he's lost that eye of the tiger a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel bad for him because you hate to see somebody, you want to see guys win. The Open Championship, I think that rings a bell, and I can't remember who was in the final pairing. I want to say like it may have been Jim Furyk, but one guy shot like a 64 and like Furyk shot like a 67.
I think that was Padraig Harrington went out and took it that year.
Yeah, that sounds right. That's the kind of final round that I want to see. I played good, you played better. Because,
And for the most part, I thought we had that coming until the final few holes, right? Like I thought Bryson played some pretty great golf. He didn't even have his, for a guy who's known for his ability to hit the tee ball. Bryson hit his driver like shit on Sunday. And so, he had to hit some golf shots. He had to hit from the waist areas. He had to get creative. He had to, do some different things around the greens. I give Bryson a ton of credit. He went out and won that golf tournament, right? Like as much as Rory choked coming down the stretch, Bryson had a 60-yard bunker shot, had to get up and down for the win.
oh yeah, I was going to
That
say,
is there a harder shot in golf,
I was
Scott,
going
than
to
a
say,
60-yard bunker shot?
are you getting up and down from there?
No. No.
I'm not.
I don't
I'm
know if
not.
I don't know if I'm getting within 15 feet. I cannot think of a harder shot in golf than the 60-yard bunker shot. They're really like I cannot stand that shot.
Yeah.
I literally could not think of a worse place to be with the tournament on the line than where he put himself. He even on his live bio, the guy Bryson lists, what's your least favorite shot is the 50 to 60-yard bunker shot. And you know what? With everybody watching, with the tournament on the line, you hit the fucking shot of your life. And you know what? The reaction was fantastic because he reacted the way you and I would, right? He didn't give you the tip of the cap and like, no, he's jumping up and down, he's fist pumping to the point where the caddy, you could literally see the caddy say like, hey, go make the putt, right? Because none
Yeah.
of this matters. None of this matters if you yip the putt. So I'm going to talk more about Bryson later on because I like a lot of what he did this week, both on and off the golf course. But Bryson, say what you want about him. He went and won this golf tournament. Say what you want about Roy. Roy had opportunities to win and he didn't take them. But Bryson, at the end of the day, went and won this golf tournament with that shot on 18.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So before we get to that favorite part, I think we had one more topic. And this is mainly because I will be out next week. And so we're going to actually miss this when it does happen. The NBA draft is coming up. So the Rockets still have the third pick, although there's all kinds of rumors that they're going to look to trade down. Maybe swing a package from Mikal Bridges or, a similar player. But uh, I'm seeing Reed Shepherd mocked to the Rockets more often than any other player. So do you have any deep thoughts on this?
I think it shows you, number one, that most people don't think Amen Thompson is the point guard of the future, which I think is something that you and I talked about with Brandon Scott when he was on the podcast a few weeks ago. And it's something that you and I agree on, right? Like, I think ideally Amen Thompson is a wing player. I think he's a guy that plays or, benefits from having a true point guard on the floor with him, a guy who's more of a guaranteed ball handler, has the ball in his hand a little bit more. So I think that's why you're seeing that a little bit more. I don't mind the pick. I just don't like, I don't mind the thought process. I don't like that as the pick, right? Like, I think there are other ways to get better, right? Like the guy Klingon from Connecticut has mentioned he'd love the idea of playing next to Sengun, and then you can play Jabari at the 3. You could play Jabari as your fourth man off the bench. It just gives you more versatility. And then there's some French players, right, that are
Yeah.
some young guys that maybe have the ability to hit long term. Um, it's definitely a more of a roll of the dice, right? When you go foreign like that. But I do think that a guy like Alex Sarr would be a nice pick if he's there. Some of those young, the real young French players that are out there right now could be an interesting proposition. We've seen Stone over in France watching some of the French league basketball. And again, I have never shied away from the fact that if there's an opportunity for the Rockets to get um Jamal Shed late in the first round,
Mhm.
early second round, I think he long term will be a better NBA player than Reed Shepherd. It's the same thought process, right? You want to go get a guy who can be a good shooter, who can be a true point guard, can help lead an offense. Every single one of the combine events that Jamal Shed has attended, he's impressed. When they play the 5-on-5, Jamal Shed has continually been the best player on the court, and his effort is continually being noticed. I like the idea of getting, you know, a guy like that late in the first, early second. Trade back up. Get a guy that may not start for you. But you know what? People like that, guaranteed NBA players, guys who can be a sixth, seventh, eighth man, can give you 15, 20 solid minutes a night, will play in the league for 10 years. Raymond Felton played the NBA for a long time. Who's the guy who, God, he played forever for the, it's just going to drive me crazy because it's going to piss me off, but he played for the Nuggets for a long time. He was a point guard.
Oh,
Uh,
Jameer Nelson?
No, 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 no. This guy bounced all around the league. He played for everybody. But if you're a point guard who can shoot the rock and come off the bench, you can give quality minutes to a lot of teams. And so a guy like Shed who plays great defense, can shoot the 3, can run the second unit. It would be crazy not to get him. And again, I look at the effect that Tank Dell had on this city. Okay, this is a guy who was from Florida and has said, like, I'm never leaving Houston. I'm not going back to Florida. I'm moving my family to Houston after what happened with all that stuff. But look at how the University of Houston and the Texans have now bought in together. Tank Dell goes back to basketball games. He is a hero. You do the same thing with Jamal Shed. The vibe in this city is amazing. The vibe on campus gets better too. And as a Cougar, I want that. I want that pathway to success to be there, right? Like at this point, I think that the UH Cougars are very close to being a blue blood basketball program in America, right? If you look at the past 5 or 6 years, they put a lot of guys in the NBA, a lot of first round picks, a lot of Sweet 16s. A guy like Shed could be in the league for 10, 15 years. And I think it would be great for the city. It'd be great for the school. It'd be great for everybody.
I think from based on the mocks that I've seen, the Rockets can get both guys.
I agree.
Jamal Shed's been picked after the Rockets pick in the second round. The one I see them picking, I've seen them slotted to them is one of the guards from UConn, which, as a concept, hey, two-time national champion, that doesn't bother me either. The one thing I'll say about Shepard is I've seen him listed as a combo guard, and he's shot 52% from distance this last year with Kentucky, which you and I both talked about is precisely the kind of player that can knock down an open jumper is what this team needs. What I have noticed in all the mocks is that the first two picks are volatile. We don't know. I mean, I've seen the UConn center go number 1 overall. I've seen him go number 4. And so there's really no telling where any of these guys are going to go, because I've seen a lot of them say those two French players are going 1 and 2. And then, seeing some that, have the UConn center going number 1. It'll be interesting to see how that ends up shaking out.
I think one of the, weirdest things to me about the NBA draft is just the volatility and talent every year, right? Like when you look at an NFL draft, there's studs in every draft, right? Like it may not always be quarterbacks, but there's always talent coming in. And it's just like this understood thing that like, yeah, some years in the NBA draft, it sucks. And some years there's 8 Hall of Famers in the first round, right? Like it is what it is, and Major League Baseball, like there's so many rounds in that draft. There's always going to be talent that you find just because there's so many baseball players being drafted. There's so many slots available. Eventually enough of those guys are going to make their way through. It happens. Are there better drafts than others? Sure. Absolutely. But like the NBA is just weird that we can accept that like, yeah, it's a weird draft. This is a crappy draft. There's not really those top 2 or 3 players. The scenario that's weird to me too is the Bronny of it all, right? Like Bronny James is out there floating around, and there's kind of the understanding that if you draft Bronny, LeBron will meet with you and can seriously consider signing you, and that essentially makes you a playoff team, right? Like if you get LeBron James at this point, he's going to bring enough of his boys to town that you're going to be a playoff team, but he's also going to mortgage your future and he's going to do all that. So that's an interesting aspect of it too, right? Where does that elevate Bronny in the draft to you, Scott, knowing that you have a chance to bring LeBron James to town, going to get you in the playoffs, with the right supporting cast, maybe you make a run. Is that worth a first round pick on Bronny James?
That then it depends on the organization. Depends on where you think you are. To me, like if as a Rockets team, I don't think that makes any sense because you're capped out, and so you're going to have to jettison how many guys, and then
I will say real quick, if you put LeBron James on this roster and he doesn't do his LeBron James bullshit and trade a bunch of guys I think this would be a hell of a basketball team.
Well,
I'm just going to say that.
That depends on who he wants to get out of town.
But that's my point. If you don't let him do the LeBron James bullshit and basically be the GM, if you just say, I'm drafting your son and I'm signing you, if you don't like it, get the fuck out of here. I don't have to take that. That's a pretty solid team of LeBron at your starting 3. Get rid of Dylan Brooks, for some cap space or whatever, and go at it that way.
You're going to have to clear $40 million in order for that. So who do you want to clear out? I mean, that's kind of the whole point. Well, but that doesn't get you there. I mean, you're going to have to, and then
hey, LeBron, you got to take a discount if you want to play Bronny.
Another team is going to have to take those guys. So
I think somebody else would take Dylan Brooks.
Well, but then you're starting talking about, hey, would you like Steven Adams? Hey, would you like that Lunsford guy? Hey, would you like Jeff Green? I mean, you're
LeBron's going to want to keep Jeff Green. You can't get rid of him.
You see what I'm saying? I mean,
right.
The other team, it's like famous radio calling guys. Like, I want to trade Jim Pankovitz for Mike Schmidt. I'll hang up and listen.
I'll hang up and listen to your take. First of all, long-time listener, first-time caller. Thanks for the Vine, Romy. Man, I used to listen to Jim. I used to be a big Jim Rome listener. And like there was a point right in Rome where he'd take phone calls, right? And like eventually he gets so pissed, right, with shit like that. Like, hey, Romy, thanks for the Vine, long time, first time. wore this, wore that. What are your thoughts on the Houston Astros maybe trading away Jeff Bagwell and Craig Beach? I'm gonna hang up and hear your thoughts. And eventually, like he get enough of those calls, he'd be like, you know what? More of me and less of you is a good show. They pay me for my opinions. You're not on the air for a reason. I'm done. Turn the phone lines off. I'm done. Right? Like that's the shit that would drive him crazy.
Yeah, and so that kind of speaking of, sending somebody out of town, I think it's time for that the special award that we do before our final segment.
Yeah, I think you want to rename
Yeah.
this special award, so I'm not going to put out.
TCU because I brought it into our newspaper office, and we had this editor we all hated. Her name was Christy Wright, and we called it the Christy L. Wright Memorial Trophy. And so somebody got all pissed off. It's not nice. So we renamed it to include her name in it. But that's my thought. So my thought was Jose Abreu, he was shipped out of town. So we're gonna get this award for the Houston sports figure. So it doesn't have to be a player. It can be a coach, can be an executive, can be an owner. Who do you want most to ship out of town next?
That's a tough one. That really is a tough one. Um. What if I went a complete 180 on you? And I'm going to say the Houston Rockets broadcast team.
Ooh.
I loved Bill Worrell. Absolutely loved Bill Worrell. And I just feel like this new team with Ackerman, who I liked on the radio, I don't think him and is it Jeffries? I don't
Oh
think they
yeah.
I don't think they vibe. I think as awful as Clyde Drexler was at times on the broadcast, he was still better than what we've got right now. So if I could change anything going into this new season, maybe a different analyst, because I do think Craig Ackerman's pretty good. I'd love Matt Thomas as the television play-by-play guy. Former Cougar, fellow Cougar, was great to me when I was the vice president of Cougar Radio. He started out as the PA guy. He now does the Rockets for the road radio games. I think I'd like a Rockets broadcast change. I'm not a fan.
So you'd be welcoming the bringing back of clubbing baby seals?
Yeah.
That was probably a regrettable line, but I don't know what he's doing, but Matt Bullard was fantastic.
Bull was great. He's in the front office now, though.
Yeah, he was fantastic, though. I kind of agree with you. I don't know if this color guy is going to grow into the role, but it was not good this last year.
It's been 2 years now. It's been 2 seasons. I don't know. I don't think you can throw Clyde in there by himself. Clyde has to be in a 3-man booth because he can't be your main analyst. To me, the best one ever was Bill Will and Calvin Murphy, right? Like I thought they were fantastic, right? But unfortunately, Calvin was accused of the things he was accused of and had to be removed from the broadcast. But I don't know, like what's Shane Battier up to these days, right? I have to feel like Shane Battier would be fantastic on a broadcast. Or why is Tracy McGrady not here? Like Tracy McGrady went to ESPN for a time. Like clearly he's got the chops. He still lives in Houston. He's very well spoken. He's honestly to this day the nicest professional athlete I've ever interacted with on multiple points. I don't know if I've told all my T-Mac stories, but I've got 2 different ones. And he's honestly a great guy. Love T-Mac. And I think it'd be fantastic to have T-Mac as your color guy. or your analyst, whatever term you want to use.
Yeah.
I think he would be why do we have a guy who's not someone I think of as a rocket, right? Like that's maybe that's my main problem. I don't know. I don't think the
Yeah.
broadcast sounds as good as it used to. And it's hard to replace a legend, right? Like the first few years after Milo, when you had Dave Raymond and you had who's the other guy who was with them? It was Dave Raymond and it
Oh,
was Greg. I don't
no,
know.
wasn't
Either
good.
way, we had two play-by-play guys, right? Like in the booth together, and it was terrible. But now you've got Robert Ford, who I truly think will go down as a Hall of Fame broadcaster when his career is said and done. The amount that man has witnessed in the booth, like that's a Hall of Fame career to me, as long as he stays active in the booth for another 20 years. Like he's called no hitters, he's called World Series, he's called All-Star games, he's called big moments, he's called everything. So like we've heard Hall of Fame level broadcasts. Bill Worrell is a Hall of Fame broadcaster. So yes, we were spoiled. I'll be the first to admit we were spoiled. But
I was gonna
also
say,
I want more.
He was working as the color guy in baseball for a long time.
Didn't he do the comments too?
Well, to kind of to prove that some guys are good in some roles and not other roles, he uttered my absolute favorite line in a baseball broadcast where he said, I've noticed that the Astros seem to ground into a lot of double plays with runners on first.
Thanks, Bill.
That's yeah, but he was a terrific basketball broadcaster. Gene Peterson was a terrific radio broadcaster, back in the day. I don't know, he might have been before your time, but
Craig Ackerman to me is the guy I think of with the radio broadcast. Like
Peterson was there when they won their championships, and he was just he would get unintelligible when they would start doing stuff, and it was great. For me, the guys that I want to see out of town, and I'm just going to lay this on them, and it's probably not fair, but I'm ready to see some changes in the Astros hitting coaches.
And the who?
The Astros hitting coaches.
Okay.
I think I'm done. Now, it was the third or fourth inning when we scored 2 runs on 3 hits. Do you want to know how many pitches White Sox pitcher threw in that inning?
Probably 9 total.
9. With 3 hits and 2 runs. You get the guy starting last night who's this young kid, and he gets to go 8 2/3 because you're swinging at the first pitch so many damn times. This team used to be good at working counts. A couple of things that, and to throw this out at you, and I've thrown it out before, this team is number 1 in the major leagues in batting average. I don't know if you knew that. They're 6th in OPS. They're 15th in runs scored. So you tell me, what's going on?
Yeah, the approach is terrible, right? You and I have talked about situational hitting before, and I think that's the kind of stuff where hitting coaches come into play, right? Like you don't make it to the major leagues if you don't know how to hit. Everybody knows how to hit. It's doing certain things in certain counts, looking for tendencies and trends, from certain pitchers. Hey, this guy, when he comes in, likes to do this. He against righties with 2 strikes, this is the pitch to look for. We don't ever know that because we never fucking get to 2 strikes. But, it used to be Altuve was a guy who swung first pitch a lot. Springer was a guy who swung first pitch a lot. But Correa worked a lot of counts. Bregman worked a lot of counts. Yordan would work counts. Kyle Tucker works counts. Maldi saw a lot of pitches because he swung at this a lot, right? So like Maldi's going to swing 3 or 4 times, get a foul tip and 3 misses. But that added up, right? Like 3 strikes. That was 9 pitches a game for Maldi alone right there. But no, like we were a team that definitely saw more pitches. And I think part of that comes from youth, right? Like we've got a lot of young guys right now that are being asked to do a lot. So, when they see a pitch that they think they can hit, they swing right away, whether it's the first pitch, second pitch, whatever. There's not the understanding that like, yes, I can hit that pitch, but why don't I let that one go? Because there's a chance I'm going to get one in the outer third, and that's where I can really do my damage, right? Like these guys don't necessarily know how to look for their pitch to do damage yet. They're still trying to fight and survive and just get base knocks, where Like if you look at the progression of Jose Altuve's career, it was 2017 where he really kind of dove more into analytics and realized pitches on this portion of the plate are ones where I'm able to do the most damage on. So unless it's 2 strikes, I don't need to swing at a pitch on the inside third and hit a jam shot to left. I need to let the ball in the outer third come to me so I can do something with it. Those are what he had his best seasons, right? When we see Jose Altuve doing Vladimir Guerrero shit and hitting a ball from the opposing batting box for a single to right field, like, hey, it's nice to see and it's great and it's fun to look at. But that's not when Jose Altuve is playing his best. That's when any player is going to play his best baseball. You're fighting to survive at that point.
Yeah, and so I don't know if that's their fault. I think obviously Pena, Diaz are free swingers, and they're going to need to work on it. But I just don't feel like the strategy's there right now.
And again, there's something to be said for the fact though that you were able to fix Pena theoretically, right? Like you had a guy who had a down second year and you brought him back for year 3 in a better way. You were able to turn Yiner back around a little bit based on the start of the season. And I do put some of the blame for Yiner's early season struggles on Maldonado. I don't think Maldonado did his job as a veteran in baseball to get Yiner ready to go as a starter the next year, right? If you look at what Carlos Correa did his last year in Houston, he got Jeremy Pena ready to be a major league shortstop. He went to him in spring training and he said to him, there's a chance I might not be back next year. I'm going to help you be ready. Maldonado, like part of baseball to me, Scott, is you have this wealth of knowledge. When you retire, what are you going to do with it? You pass that knowledge on to the next generation of players. Why does Maldonado not have Yiner ready to go more on a defensive or game planning level, right? Like that to me is maybe a little bit disappointing. As much as we loved Maldi, everything that he did for this team, I would have expected him to teach Yiner a bit more how to prepare. So that way the start of this season wasn't such a shell shock for him as, hey, here, you're the starting catcher. This is the amount of homework that you need to do every night. I feel like a good portion of his struggles early on was he was maybe a little unprepared for the amount of just studying and game tape he was going to have to watch.
Yeah, that's a good call on that one. All right, are we ready for the fun part of the week?
Yeah, let's take a moment here as we tip our cap to someone that we each think was just a delight this week. A lot of good choices, but all in all, Scott, who do you have for the hat tip of the week?
I'm going to tip my cap to Rachel Maddow. We went to an event just this last week before we went on our little mini vacation. I love this term where they sit there and they tell you, we're going to give you her book for free. And it's like, no, I'm paying $50 for the ticket to go see her. You're giving me her book for $50. But it was a terrific show. Lots of good information. She obviously, I don't know how much you know about her, but she's a Rhodes Scholar, has her doctorate in public policy from Oxford University. So she's not like a Sean Hannity who's just, quite literally a talking head. Actually knows her stuff, did her research, and it's going to be a terrific book to break into.
Nice. I look forward to your review of it, and if they come out with a audio book, I might check it out. I never have time to sit and read. It's so hard to get a few moments when you've got a 1-year-old running all over the place. So if I can just throw it in my ear and listen while I'm getting stuff done, that's typically the best way at this point for me.
You never know. They might release an audio version.
Scott, this week I'm going to tip my cap to Bryson. He has done so much since going to live to change my opinion of him in general. It's unbelievable, right? With what he does on social media, he's engaging, he's fun. I think he's a wonderful interview. I think he's shown a side of himself that maybe I relate to a bit as far as his obsession with the game of golf. I think the reason I want to tip my cap to him, though, is the way that he treats the fans. There's, the stories going around. Obviously, Bryson's the last one to leave the range on Saturday, working, grinding. There's about 50 kids that were waiting around. And Bryson tells them, hey, meet me on this side of the range because where I'm at right now, all I can do is reach over the rope. So he meets them all on a different end so that way they can all come through. He poses for pictures. He signs. One kid doesn't have anything for him to sign. Bryson takes his own hat off his head, signs it, gives it to the kid. One girl comes around the rope, takes a picture with Bryson, doesn't love the picture. Bryson says, hey, let's do it again. Takes the picture. Bryson wins. What does the guy do? He literally walks through the sea of people and lets every single one of those guys touch the trophy, be a part of it. I know some people think it's fake. And you know what? If it is, I don't care, right? Like, if you're a fan and you were there that day and you got to be a part of that, whether he's being genuine or not, it's still really fucking cool. And it's something that no one's ever done before, right? Have you ever seen anyone say, hey, everybody, your support down the stretch really helped me. Come celebrate with me. I love it because at the end of the day, I think Bryson may be that guy, Scott, who can bring this tour back together. Because for as long as Rory was banging against everything, maybe that wasn't the right option. Maybe having someone like Bryson who can win majors on the Live Tour and literally came out and said, we need to find a way to bring everybody together. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe he can be the person who says, hey, let's all sit down. But I enjoyed the way he handled things. The guy literally stopped and signed an autograph mid-round in the final round of a major he won for a special needs guy. Like, Tiger's never done that. Tiger would never do that. You don't break Tiger's stride, right? But that just shows Bryson, like, I think he's getting it at a level he hadn't before. Part of it comes, you've grown up, you've aged, you've matured. You understand that, like, the reason you're so popular is all those people there, right? Like, they are cheering for you, Bryson. So if you don't engage them, they're not going to keep cheering for you, right? Like, it's like a tit cup. He's mean to old people and dogs. It's, it is what it is, right? And I think Bryson took that to heart. And I honestly, like, looking back on it, I feel bad that I thought I liked Brooks Koepka more than Bryson. Like, Brooks was kind of a fucking bully at the end of the day if you look back on that feud. So I'm gonna tip the cap to Bryson and say, hey, man, I really enjoyed watching him win, and I enjoyed the way he's handled his fans, and he treats the fans, and golf's better for it.
And you hope those Live guys, hopefully things are going to soften for them down the way. Because, the thing is that when somebody shows up to your door and says, we'll pay you $50 million, $100 million, or some cases like, $200 million to go play in our tour, no questions asked. I mean, if Liv were to go to you and say, hey, we heard you're a scratch golfer. Would you like $5 million to come play on Liv? I mean,
yeah. Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's, and we can talk about the politics of it all, but, the fact is it's going to take guys like him not to be assholes about it, not to be Greg Norman. And that's, and it's going to take that for this gaping wound in golf to heal.
Yeah, it's gonna take absolutely an engaging personality that everybody loves. That, if Rahm and Bryson come together and say, hey, we've got to fix this, there's a chance there. So you're right. It's going to take somebody like that. It's not Norman. Norman has too many grudges. Again, my problem from the beginning was where the money comes from. I don't care if someone wants to pay me that much money. I just, I hate that it's the Saudi government. Like, literally, if it was almost anybody else, I probably wouldn't care that much. It's just that it's like bad people, right? Like, how would you feel if, like, you watched The Wire, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How would you feel if, like, the people who sold crack cocaine and murdered everybody funded a golf league, and they offered you, Scott, $5 million to be the face of the Baltimore Heights Pro Golf League? But you 100% know that this money comes from crack.
You're not wrong.
Still playing?
You're not wrong. Yeah, I mean, that's true. All right, so I think we've got the positive people. Now it's everybody's favorite time.
Yeah, who doesn't love a good scumbag, Scott?
I certainly do.
Everybody does. It's what we do. These people offended us in some way or another, and they should, and such, be labeled as scumbags of the week.
All right,
Scott, do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I can take this one. All right. My scumbag is Miss Martha Alito. And I think I texted you this story, but she had there was like this Christian mingling, big money, big shot thing. And so this woman sneaks in, kind of playing like a female Borat almost. And she's going to interview both Samuel Alito and Martha Alito. Now, Samuel Alito had some, interesting comments that, make him scumbagish, but his wife takes the case. And here's why. Number one, she is really, really into flags, Tim. Really into flags. She might sleep with a flag.
Like, are we talking Sheldon Cooper fun with flags level of into flags?
We might be talking Donald Trump, fucking a flag, level of just it's. So she wants to design a flag because she saw a pride flag flying across the lake from her in her neighborhood. She wants to design her own flag with the Italian word for shame. Why Italian? I don't know, because she made a big deal of the fact that she's German. And, I've got, I'm a quarter German on my mother's side. And she was talking about how Germans are hotheads that get even. And I'm like sitting there thinking, there's a lot of stereotypes that I can think of about Germans, but hothead is not one of those that come to mind.
For Germans?
Yeah, for Germany.
I think quick to war is similar to hothead, right? Like,
yeah, but
Germans started 2 world wars, man.
Yeah, but I don't know if that was over hothead. It was just because they wanted to take over the world.
Fair.
I mean, it wasn't a revenge thing. It was a, they're scumbags of historical significance. But, if you want to fly a flag that says shame in Italian, I guess you can do whatever the heck you want. But why does a pride flag bother you that much? If you're against being gay, don't be gay. It's really that simple. If you're against transsexuals, don't be a transsexual. Don't let your kids be transsexuals if you really feel strongly enough about it. But if somebody else that you don't know wants to do that, why do you care that much? And to think that this is the person living with one of the 9 people that gets to make decisions on what the law of the land is. It's just, it's scary.
Yeah, and it's now the second spouse that's like an out fascist of a Supreme Court justice, right? Like Ginny Thomas is it literally for for no other better, so she's a J6er, right? Like, was she there storming the Capitol? No, but like her money was like she paid for people to get there, and she is outwardly like protesting for these people, and her husband's on the Supreme Court, and they live together and share a bed and plenty of intimate conversation, and both share the vacations that are illegally obtained. And then Alito, obviously, scary. It's just a scary. We're a fascist country. Like the sooner we admit it, the better. Speaking of which, my scumbag this week, Scott, I'm gonna have 2. Let me do the quick one first, and then I'll get into the real one. The idiots that started chanting USA after Roy McIlroy missed his putt on 18 are fucking losers. Okay, like you're probably Live fans. You're losers. Like Roy lives in Florida, dumb fuck. Like literally lives in the United States of America. This isn't the Ryder Cup. Don't do that shit. If you're at a golf tournament and you think I should start chanting USA, ask yourself 2 questions. Am I a fucking moron? If the answer is yes, okay. Hey, I can't stop you. If the answer is no, the second question should be, is this the Ryder Cup? If the answer is yes, chant USA. If the answer is no, then shut the fuck up and just golf clap and move on from there. That's what we do. Now, my real scumbag. Texas is here again. They're dancing They got the spirit fingers going. They want the attention. Texas GOP has put it on the docket for succession, Scott. These motherfuckers are so patriotic, they want to leave. And I don't, it is literally an act of fucking treason to try and secede from the United States of America. That is treason to have those conversations. You are putting it on a fucking vote on a ballot for everybody in your party to literally commit an act of treason together as they all vote on this Republican docket together. Like, what are we doing, Scott? This is absolutely outrageous. I don't want a passport to have to go to Oklahoma. I don't want to lose any benefit I have of being an American citizen. I have always been an American. I want no fucking part of this. I want Greg Abbott, Ken Paxton, Dan Patrick, and Elon Musk to all try out one of his new spaceships together, and I want that test to go just fucking horribly wrong.
Okay, so point of order for those of y'all who live in Texas and may not understand history. Okay, in the Texas Constitution, when they originally entered the Union, yes, it did say that Texas could legally secede from the United States. However, when we seceded from the Union and
that was it.
War,
that was the time. You did it.
That was the time. We did it. And in order to re-enter the Union, every state that seceded from the Union had to sign up for the same rules. And those rules state that you can't do it. So for all those who want, well, we have it in our Constitution. We can. No, not legal anymore. You had your shot at it.
Let me give you this. Let me give you this analogy, Scott. You've got one golf ball in your bag. You tee that golf ball up. You hit the piss out of it. Unfortunately, it goes in the water. You know what you no longer have? Your golf ball, because it's in the water. So Texas had their secession golf ball. They teed it up. They hit the piss out of it. They kept their slaves. They went hard. But that ball, that ended up in the water. They lost that war. There is no Confederate States of America. That shit is gone. That golf ball is gone. You can't hit that ball anymore because it's in the fucking water.
I don't know if you saw this, but they want to change the rules of how elections work in Texas.
Yeah, because they want to gerrymander us even more. They want counties to be electorally counted.
Yes.
Where someone who lives in a county with 200 people in it is all of a sudden equal. That county carries the same weight as Harris County or Tarrant County or Bear County in San Antonio, right? Like, just because you realize that a majority of people live in heavily populated areas, and the people in heavily populated areas realize you're pieces of shit, you don't get to change the rules. Mississippi took until like 2010 to get that shit changed, and they passed it in the 1890s as a way to control their black citizens. This is like the Texas GOP, like they literally are fucking Nazis, man. Like it is living in Weimar Germany right now, watching a post beer hall putsch Nazi party make their fucking way in the polls.
Yeah, every accusation is a confession for them. And so they talk, their biggest thing is every election is rigged. Yeah, it's really unfair when a majority of voters vote against you.
Yeah.
It's unfair.
My favorite is the term they've come up with, which is lawfare, which is when you use the law against us. I prefer to think of it, they're in the FO phase of the FAFO, right? Fuck around and find out. They all fucked around, and now they're finding out legally, and they're like, you guys are making up laws to come after us. These are political witch hunts, whatever, bullshit, crock of shit, motherfucking bullshit they want to throw at it. At the end of the day, it's people who broke the law and don't like the consequences, or people who are from the law and order party who broke the law continuously, who have committed libel, who have committed fraud, who have committed perjury, who are literally sexual predators in many cases. When you look at some of the pastors that fund a lot of these people who are now being arrested for inappropriate relationships, these people are the fucking scum of the earth. And as a state, We are allowing them to control everything that we do. We are allowing them to control women's bodies. We are allowing them to control the education of our state. We are allowing them to control the funding for that education of our state. We're allowing them to control how our votes are even counted. Like they're literally trying to make it so you can't even elect Democrats. They're trying to outlaw the Democratic Party. This, by the way, is one of the tenets of fascism. No other political parties. This shit is like I literally couldn't write a dystopian society book, like the epilogue to a dystopian society, better than what the Texas GOP does on their own. Like literally. This is what sci-fi is made of, is this shit right here. You write this part first on how it got there, then the bomb goes off, and then we end up in our new post-apocalyptic world.
Okay, so I ask you some basic questions here, Tim, to figure out whether or not you're going to be a victim of a witch hunt. Have you had sex with a porn star?
No.
And so you certainly didn't do it while you were married.
No.
And right after Scotty was born.
No.
Did you pay her $130,000?
No, I don't have $130,000.
Did you falsify business records?
No. I'd have to have a business.
We've cleared that deck. Okay. So did you purposefully and maliciously spread lies about what happened in Newtown, Connecticut?
No, I'm not Alex Jones. Hang on, like that one, I could go for hours on that, because not only did he purposefully and wishfully spread lies, he sent reporters to people's houses to harass the parents. He looked at his Google Analytic numbers and realized those were the days that the most people went to his site and shopped stuff in his store. So he continually talked about it to be able to make more money off of those people. He has, again, terrorized these people. He's released their addresses on his show live on air to followers that we all know have fucking guns and are crazy. I love West. I have the biggest social justice boner you've ever seen in my world for what's happening to Alex Jones.
Okay. All right. So another question. Have you had sex with a 17-year-old and transported her across state lines?
No.
Okay. All right. So you're not Matt Gaetz either.
No.
Gotcha.
Although I vacation in Matt Gaetz' district.
Yeah, I probably drove through it. But
he's in charge of Destin. I hate it. Every time I'm there, I see the Gaetz signs.
So I'm trying to think. Okay, any other ones? Did you
I didn't steal any classified documents.
You didn't steal any. Did you try to overturn an election?
Yes, I did. I did try and overturn an election. There was a HOA election. There was.
Did you call?
Of course, the president of my weekly foursome. There were 4 votes. And
did you make a contact? Did you call? And we need to find 5 votes. Just find me 5 votes.
That's what I said. But there's only 4 people in the group, so that's how they knew I was busted. They knew. I said I need 5 votes. I had 9 votes in a 4-man vote, so they knew I was fucked.
Okay, so have you stormed any capitals?
Capitol Grill on a very hungry day.
No, Capitol Grill. So no state or national capitals, right?
No, I think I went to a trumpet performance that my brother did at City Hall once.
So I am going to go on a wild limb here and say that, since I can answer no to all those questions as well, that neither you or I will be a victim of a witch hunt.
Probably. Actually, I think realistically, because we do this podcast and literally talk shit on the Texas GOP on a weekly basis, we are actually more likely to be victims of a legitimate witch hunt than the people that claim that they are. Like, if anything actually happened to us and they came after us, it would be a witch hunt, because we don't do any of these things.
Yeah, so I think that's Dan Patrick knocking on your door.
I would fucking love if Dan Patrick knocked on my door, because now I have a sign that says no trespassing. So now he's trespassing, and we have a lot, the stand your ground law in Texas. Like, hello, Louisville Slugger.
All right, Tim. It's been fun.
We like to remind everybody that the tree that hit Greg Abbott only had one job, and it failed that job. We do that reminder every week.
Yep. We're going to take a week off here, but when we get back, the Rockets will have at least 2 new players, we think. And, maybe we might have some former Astros to talk about.
We shall see. Time will tell. But we appreciate everybody who joined us. Scott will be looking refreshed, relaxed, and ready to rumble when we get back here in 2 weeks. But we appreciate everyone who made us a part of your week this week. And we will see you next time on Born on the Bayou Sports.